Good afternoon. Thanks everybody for being here, and thanks Hans for joining me in this announcement and your advocacy for this issue. And of course, thank you for reminding me that I lost in Lincoln County. There's always next time. Anyway, here's part of the backdrop here. When more than 80% of the people of Wisconsin support medical marijuana, 80% support universal background checks, and 70% support Medicaid expansion, and elected officials can ignore those numbers. Frankly, that's, I don't get it. There's something wrong. And when elected officials can rely on the safety of their seats rather than the quality of their work, again, that's something's wrong. The people should be able to choose their elected officials, not the other way around. And the people of Wisconsin agreed. Hans just told you, 50 counties, 78% of Wisconsinites have passed resolutions supporting nonpartisan redistricting. And I just have to throw in, when I was running for office, I talked about nonpartisan maps a lot. And I said we would be doing a disservice as Democrats, me being a Democrat, if we wanted to have maps, if we wanted retribution. We can't have retribution. We have maps that are gerrymandered now. In one way, it makes no sense to have gerrymandered maps the other way. We can't do this. This has to be nonpartisan. So this morning, I had the opportunity to sign an executive order creating the People's Maps Commission. The commission will be tasked with visiting every congressional district, including this one, hearing directly from the people of this district, and when they have that those events in this district, I want you to be here. And they're going to draw fair and impartial maps for the legislature to consider next year. And the folks serving on this commission will be, you guessed it, the people of Wisconsin. I believe when it comes to the integrity of the process and the fairness of the maps, Wisconsin must look like the people, not like politicians, but people to assist drawing maps that fairly and accurately represent this state. There won't be lobbyists on that commission or high-paid consultants or secrecy agreements behind closed doors. This will be commission of the people and for the people. When the people's maps are finished, the commission will present them to the legislature for consideration. And I hope that they will receive unanimous bipartisan support. Because as I've said lots of times, the will of the people is the law of the land, and that has to be applied in this case. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions the media may have. Yes, sir.
Frank Kowalski, City Pages. Can you talk about a little more about the process this commission will undertake? I assume there'll be some sort of staff support, and do you envision a certain timeline for this?
Well, the timeline has, the end point of the timeline is driven by the census. And I hope all of you out there are getting people ready to fill out the census forms. But the information from the census will drive the final part of the map, and that comes a year from this March. The commission will be, first of all, we're looking for people to be on the commission. You can go online and apply if you wish. And then there will be staff support, so it's not just people. The Department of Administration is going to be making sure that they have the resources necessary to do the work. But at the end of the day, they can get to the point where the maps are going to be created, and then using the census information, get those maps finished as soon as possible after the census information is.
Do you see a hurdle with the legislator adopting these maps once completed?
Well, I believe that they're going to be so excited to have nonpartisan maps that they will take it up. I know there is a reason why people on the Republican side like the maps the way they are, because they're gerrymandered in a way that is not fair to, is not nonpartisan. And so there will be pushback, but we'll have the opportunity to, if the legislature decides to proceed as they have in the past and they have gerrymandered maps, we'll have those up there, and they'll have the ones that this commission have put together, and people can say, my gosh, there's a bit of a difference here. So we believe that that as Hans talked about, this does have bipartisan, nonpartisan support. So we're hopeful that it's going to be a winner. Yes, ma'am.
So look, this is a little bit of a change of topic, but
Sure.
as you may have seen, the La Crosse Catholic Diocese released a list of credibly accused abusers last week. And I'm wondering if there's going to be any official kind of addressing of clergy abuse in the state, or is that something that you would support if it came?
Well, certainly everybody has to be appalled by clergy misbehavior in this area. And the Archdiocese, or the Diocese of La Crosse has done it. I know the Archdiocese of Milwaukee has done, gone back in time. So I'm not sure what the state can do to influence the Catholic Church on it. It would have been great to have this done, prior to these acts happening, but it's an important thing for me. If there's a way the state can be helpful in not making sure that doesn't happen in the future, I'd be more than glad to look at something. Yes, yes, sir. Hi.
Governor, if your commission and then the state legislature come up with competing opposing maps, is it up to the courts then to either pick one map or the other, or draw up their own?
Well, it could be. The question is what happens if, and the legislature is not favorable towards these maps, and they pass some other kind. Traditionally and legally in the past, the governor has a chance to accept or veto them, and I know last time Governor Walker accepted those. This time, if they're gerrymandered, I will veto those. And then it would go to either we figure out something at the state level, or it would go to last time, I think years ago, it went to federal court, and the court decides. Yes, sir.
It's a daunting task. Complexity, you say census information used, but then what criteria? How do you have something that's not biased one way or another? You could employ GIS and that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's great, yes. And there is a lot of technology behind this now as compared to it was even just 10 years ago. And so I'm not concerned about that, but you make a good point. The commission will take a look at various things. For instance, how many, is there a percentage, do we have competitive races everywhere, or as many places as possible? That can be done relatively easy using technology. So yes, it's the GPS information, but it's also
GIS.
Yes, thank you. Not GPS. Yes, that too. But and so I think, but setting those criteria up ahead of time will make sure that it's done correctly.
One last question here.
Yes, sir.
Any reaction at all to the announcement today from Republicans down in Madison that they may not take up a special session tomorrow regarding the farm agriculture support bills that you proposed last week?
Well, I think it's still up in the air. I know last time I heard Senator Fitzgerald seemed to have some favorableness around it, and Representative Voss was a little concerned, but at the minimum, from what I've heard, is that they're going to be, on the Assembly side, passing it off to the Agriculture Committee, which would have to happen anyway. So they will get to the point where we want them to, one way or the other. I'm looking forward to this. One more in the back.
Thank you, Governor. One of the things I've talked to a lot of people about this issue, I've studied it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I taught social studies, government. It's always been an issue with me. Never so much as after what happened in 2011. And I think I guess you should never assume anything, because you talk to people. There's so many people that don't understand what you're talking about, don't even know what the issue is. So it's going to be a process of education, and much more so than many of us would assume. Yeah. And I think that the plan will do a lot of educating as this moves around the state, and that's going to be a key factor that people understand just how important this issue is.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that, because that will be part of the commission's work, explaining why we're even doing this, why it's an issue, and frankly, how it's done in other places and done in a way that is not nonpartisan. I know somebody right in the middle had a question, then this will do
Yes.
it.
Governor, I applaud you for this proposal. I had dreamed that you'd be able to come up with something that offered so much promise for progress in this area. But of course, I think the goal is to get legislation passed where Wisconsin would adopt a nonpartisan commission method as its legal way for proceeding with reapportionment. And I know that 40 years ago in Iowa, a Republican government there adopted such a method, which I believe our Wisconsin legislative proposals are patterned after. What do you think the difference is between the Republican leadership in Iowa in 1980 and the Republican leadership? I mean, what's the holdup here in Wisconsin?
Several decades. Well, certainly I would argue, and I don't think this is something that will prevent us from succeeding to make that happen, but it's certainly, things are more partisan than they've ever been before, whether it's in Washington, D.C. or Madison, Wisconsin. And so I think there's just this natural tribalism that goes on. But when it comes down to voting, I don't think people that, especially our social studies teacher back there, understands what an important, and you all do too, you wouldn't be here, what an important part of our democracy it is, and we have to do it right, and there are other states that do it right, and so hopefully if there's still some difference of opinion after I veto gerrymandered map, that there would be some common sense, and that we would say, okay, let's do it like they do in Iowa. I mean, there's already Republicans, we already have a bill like that, and there's already Republicans on that bill. So if that's the best and shortest way, let's have at it. I'm all in favor of that. So thanks, everybody, appreciate it. Have a good day.